You clicked on this video, I'm imagining, because you want to be a professional editor. If you clicked on it for some other reason, I apologize, because that's what the video is about. How to become a professional editor. And I can talk about this because I'm actually a professional editor. Anyway, I have some bullet points I'm going to discuss. And be sure to stick around to the end, because I'm going to tell you the most important part about how you become a professional editor. The thing that I've learned in my 20-year career, 20-plus year career. We're going to talk about the bullet points of how to become a professional editor. That's why people are here. That's what they want. They don't want to hear about other shit. Be flexible with the tools you use. I think this is a pretty important one. Throughout my career, I have used almost every editing tool software-wise. I never did the flatbed. I'm not that old. An old friend of mine and I from college started a company servicing the music industry. And we had to learn some editing software. So I got IMDB. That's the first piece of software I learned. But shortly I learned that I needed to probably get Final Cut Pro, and I got into that. I really fell in love with Final Cut Pro. I did a lot of work on it, a lot of work. My partner and I, we did a bunch of work for his record label that he worked for, which was Epitaph Records at that point. We were doing EPKs and some live shows and stuff like that, interviews, stuff, you know, low rent stuff, but we were shooting it and editing it using a Canon XL1 and Final Cut Pro. And then we also shot our first kind of like feature level thing. We were trying to make this educational DVD for Shakespeare's Macbeth. At that point, I was focused on Final Cut Pro. Then I got a job at a post house, initially doing graphics, because I also knew After Effects. Again, be flexible in what you do. They had an Avid Media Composer at this facility. I really wanted to learn Media Composer, but it was very expensive to get into at this point. So the guy that ran the place was kind of like, he knew I edited, and he said, would you like to learn this? And I was like, yes, I would like to learn that. So basically I taught myself Media Composer. Avid Media, I think it was a film composer at that point. The first gig, and this was like after a week or two of doing this, he's like, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he books me on a commercial. It was like a CD, flautist, I don't remember, Andre Rieu, I think, something like that. So the guy comes in with some video, some stills, some audio, and he's like, let's make a commercial. But I was so in over my head, I didn't know enough. It was really, I was sweating so much. I was behind the system, plugging things in, trying to figure out how to get the audio to come out. Anyway, I got through it. I gave the guy a commercial at the end of this, and I learned a lot that day. And I've been through that a couple times where I had to learn on the fly. So being flexible, being able to learn, willing to learn. Some other software I've used throughout my career. So Avid Media Composer, Film Composer, Symphony, Avid DS I also used, Premiere I've used, Final Cut Pro, we talked about that. The one I'm really into these days, DaVinci Resolve, and then Autodesk Flame. Those are really the software, IMDB, I think I talked about that too. Those are the ones that I've used throughout my career. So you can see, I've had to learn a lot of different software suites, and in some cases really had to master them because I had to use them on a day-to-day basis. Never stop learning. This kind of goes into the same thing that I was talking about with the software, being able to learn all these different suites of software. And one of the things that ties into that is learn conceptually. Don't learn just steps to do. Understand the concepts behind what's happening. That will help you a lot. Because then when you have to go to another software suite, you think about it conceptually versus procedurally. And that will always help you. So that is the first part of that. And the second part is broaden your skills. Like I said earlier, I could do, when I first got my first real professional job at a post house, I was doing motion graphics because I knew how to do that too. I've also branched into visual effects quite a bit. I'm currently really pursuing a career, not only editing, but as a visual effects supervisor. But the thing is, broaden your skills. I can do visual effects, I can do motion graphics, I can do offline editing, I can do online editing, and I can do color management. Those are the things I'm pretty good at, that I would say I'm an expert at. You do want to specialize a little bit. You want to kind of figure out what you do. Are you an offline guy? Are you an online guy? Are you a visual effects guy? Are you a color guy? Are you reality TV? Are you narrative TV? And you can change around, but knowing where you want to end up is pretty important, and going in a direction and making choices. And remember that every choice you make in your career is going to affect how your career turns out down the line. Let's talk about offline versus online. Okay, so like I said, what I do is online editing. It's the finishing phase. Most of the cutting, the editorial choices have been made by the time it comes to me. Somebody sends me an EDL, an AAF, an Avid project, a Resolve project, a DRT, an XML if it's coming out of Premiere, or the actual projects that they cut in. Because sometimes I want to make those files myself because I'm finishing everything in DaVinci Resolve. Everything I'm doing these days, DaVinci Resolve. Most of the visual effects I'm doing these days, Fusion. Some After Effects. I used to use Flame a lot. I still like Flame, but that's really not the software I'm focused on these days. An online editor is not all that different from an offline editor's skill set, but they have to know a lot about finishing and probably color and visual effects. Offline editors, those are the people that are making the editorial choices. Usually they're working at lower res than the finish, and they're cutting, they're choosing shots, they're working with directors, showrunners, people like that. They cut the show, then they send me a cut. I link back to the high-res final masters, make sure it matches the cut, do the final effects, possibly change the cut down the line. Either Edit sends me an updated list or we make a choice at the last minute. I've had it happen both ways. That's kind of what the difference between offline and online is. Ask questions down below in the comment section if you don't understand. I got a lot of experience in both. Let's talk about being freelance versus staff. Most of my career has been as staff editor. I've been working in post-production houses, doing online, doing visual effects, doing motion graphics, doing some offline, sometimes bleeds into that, but that's really what I've been doing for the past 20 years in a staff position. The benefit of staff position is it's like having a regular job in a lot of ways. You got 5 days a week, you get a guarantee, you get insurance, you get all those kinds of things, and it's really great. But it can become a bit of a grind, and if you're not doing work that you're really in love with, it might make you... So freelance is a little bit better for that kind of thing. You get a lot of change, if you don't like something, it's going to be over soon. But insurance is an issue, pay is an issue. When things dry up, you're going to be the first one that gets hit, for instance, in a strike like what we're coming through right now. So that's the difference with freelance versus staff. They both have their benefits. I've mainly done staff, but I certainly have done a lot of freelance too. That's how I started my career. A lot of you will probably have to start that way. So get used to the freelance idea. But if you want to be staff, that's your ultimate goal. You'll probably be looking as an editor at a post-production job, not necessarily a cutting room job. Those are almost always freelance. Which brings me to my next point. Union or non-union? Most of the work that I do, the people that do what I do, that's non-union work. But I'm a union member. I happened to land at a post house about 10 years ago that was union through various things, and I went union so that I could work there, and then I've stayed. And the reason I like staying in the union is the benefits are extremely good. And if you get furloughed or laid off, you can keep your benefits for a while. That's one of the things right now is I'm able to keep my medical insurance and my insurance for my family. So it's a big deal. Plus you get to pension, you get guarantees, protections. That's the nice thing about union. The benefit also is if you want to work in the offline world on big TV shows, big scripted dramas, big movies, all that kind of stuff, most of that's union at a certain level. So you're going to have to get into the union if you want to be editing stuff like that offline for sure. So if you want to get into offline, becoming union is much more important. If you're looking at online and finishing, it's not as necessary, but you can do it. And there's no penalty for working non-union when you are union. So, and the union that I'm in, that most editors are in, is the Motion Picture Editors Guild's IATSE Local 700. That's the union for editors. I can maybe make a whole a whole video about how to get into the union if you guys are interested. Put something in the comments and I might just do that. Understand or be familiar with other disciplines within filmmaking. If you're in online, you need to understand the offline world. But as an editor, you got to understand a little bit about what goes on in production. Understand a little bit about production, about lighting, cameras, especially cameras, camera file formats, how to work with raw files, how to work with audio, how to work with raw audio that's not sunk with video, understanding how slates, smart slates work with take and scenes information and all that kind of stuff. You need to understand a lot of that. So understanding production, at least on a little bit of a superficial level, is important if you're going to be an editor. Again, think conceptually. Understand how it all works from the moment it's shot and captured, the moment it's edited, color corrected, final visual effects, output, or finish with final titles, all of that. Learn to get along with people. This is something I'm not always good at, but it's really, really important. You're going to work with a lot of different kinds of personalities. Television production, film production inherently involves a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, and some of them are difficult. I spend a lot of time in the Bay with people, in conference calls with people these days, ever since COVID, a lot of Zoom calls, and learning how to interact, find out the information you need to find out, give the clients what they're looking for. These things are incredibly important, and have everybody feel pretty good about the process, feel good about working with you, because you want them to want to work with you again. Keep in touch with people you worked with before. Always. Have lunch with them, have a drink with them, even just text them, email them, pick up the phone, call them, check in, see what they're up to, see if they want to have lunch, see if they're working on a show. If they're working on a show, they might think of you for something. You have to be a bit of your own salesman in this business. And this really goes to the last thing, which like I said, was the most important thing. If you want to have a career as a professional video editor, stop treating it like a hobby. Start treating it like a job. That means try to get paid for everything you do. Limit the amount of free work you're doing, unless it's something you're doing for yourself that you believe in. But don't take a lot of free work and low rent work if you can get to the next level and take something better. But all those things kind of fall in together. If you've got great skill set, you keep in touch with the people you work with, that will continue to grow. Really get out of the hobby mindset and into the, this is my job. I'm a professional video editor. All right, thanks guys. I appreciate you guys showing up and watching. Like, subscribe, comment. It all helps me. I've got close to 30 years experience in the entertainment industry, 20 plus doing this, video editing, here in Los Angeles, from music videos, concerts, episodic television, films, features. I'll put my IMDB link and my LinkedIn link down below so you can kind of see some of the stuff I've worked on. I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate you watching. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Bye.